So you may not have heard that the Trump regime is waging war on the power grid on folks who live in the western part of the United States. If you think that's not intentional, think again. I want to talk about it because the impacts are significant, both to our infrastructure, the cost of electricity, and our safety, because there's a lot more going on than what you may realize. And my boy poodle is going to do his little, get settled, Apollo. Okay, so last week, the end of the week, the Trump regime fired more than 600 workers for the Bonneville Power Authority. That is the folks who run the Bonneville Dam and supply about 28% of the electricity to the following states: Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, and California. It's a huge part of the country. It's a big deal. This is not about cutting government waste. This is not about trimming fat or exposing fraud. This is about firing necessary workers that keep our power grid operational. 600 folks who do things like maintain the dam, maintain our power lines. Several of those states that I listed went very much for Trump in the last election, and rural parts of some of the other states, including my own state, Oregon, and including Washington state, also go very red. Did y'all vote for destabilizing our power grid and watching the cost of your electricity go through the roof? Is that what you voted for? Is that what you want? Those of you that voted red, is this what you thought you were getting? I know you think that the illegitimate, made up, not real Department of Government Efficiency is cutting waste, exposing fraud, trimming fat from the government budget. They are slashing left and right to make the government more efficient and save the taxpayer money. That's what they have told you. That's what you believe wrongly. They are slashing all of that in order to give billionaires a tax break for the next 10 years, while also ramping up the national debt $4 trillion by giving billionaires a tax break. But I digress. So did you think that the efficiency you were looking for was destabilizing our power grid and driving the cost of your electricity way, way up? What about any of that choice is making the West Coast great again? What about that is going to have a positive impact on your life? Like, how many of these actions is it going to take before you realize that these guys are not out to make your life better at all? They're out to make you suffer. The point is to make you suffer so they can consolidate power and dismantle our democracy. Destabilizing basic utilities and driving your cost of living up substantially are ways that they are putting the screws to you to make it easier for them to topple democracy and seize complete control. How many more of these actions do you need to see? How many more times do you have to experience FAFO before you realize what you have done and fight back against it? And right, you don't have to take my word for it.
In the Pacific Northwest, there is still a working commercial nuclear reactor that feeds the largest electricity supplier in that part of the country, which is the Bonneville Power Administration. Trump, in addition to firing the cleanup crews at Hanford, also just fired hundreds of people, more than 600 employees who keep the lights on at Bonneville, too. Mass layoffs at Bonneville Power Administration raise concerns about reliability of power grid. They're firing electricians there, engineers, line workers, cybersecurity experts. Again, that's the power grid, the biggest electricity supplier in the Pacific Northwest, including some of their electricity being supplied by a big commercial nuclear plant. Is that what you voted for?
So I don't know about you, but it's not a great idea to be laying off necessary workers that keep our power going, and also necessary workers that keep a nuclear power plant going. Speaking of nuclear, let's talk about Hanford. Rachel mentioned it at the beginning of her little clip there. But for those of you who are not in the Pacific Northwest, you may not know what the Hanford nuclear site is. Let me read a little bit to you about Hanford. I'm going to be reading from an article from the Seattle Times by Jayati Ramakrishnan from a couple of days ago. You can go look up the whole article if you want to read the entire thing. The layoffs from the Hanford nuclear site include safety engineers, environmental scientists, and folks who protect worker safety, right? This is part of special government employee Elon Musk's quest to slash the federal workforce. Again, Republicans, is this what you voted for? For Elon Musk, an unelected foreigner ketamine addict, to be slashing our necessary workers that keep things like our electrical grid going and also protect us from things like nuclear disasters. Reading from the article here, these reckless firings will slow down critical cleanup work and make workers less safe. Trying to run Hanford with a skeleton crew is a recipe for disaster and could have irreversible impacts, says Senator Patty Murray. For those of you that don't know what Hanford is, it was used from World War II through the Cold War to produce 2/3 of the nation's plutonium for nuclear weapons, leading to major contamination. This is a not a great site. Federal employees at the site are responsible for negotiating with regulators to make sure environmental cleanup work is completed and meets federal standards. This is where we store and dispose of nuclear waste, y'all. Do you think it's a good idea for Elon Musk to be cutting those jobs? The senator said that the site is already notoriously understaffed, and to cut these crucial positions risks the safety and well-being of everybody. Do we want nuclear waste just, not properly contained and leaking into the environment in Washington state? Is that something that is good for America? Is that making America great again? So Elon Musk, unelected foreigner who has no business because he has no expertise. He doesn't know how electrical grids work. He knows nothing about the administration and runnings of a massive dam. He knows nothing about nuclear waste disposal containment. He knows nothing about the environmental issues going on here. He is just going to come in and slash all of these jobs. Not just him, his team of 19, 22, 25-year-old boys who, tweet overtly racist Yahtzee nonsense. These folks are qualified to make these decisions. These folks that none of us voted for, nobody elected these guys. Please, I understand a huge segment of the impacted states and communities that are listed. They all voted for Donald Trump. I want to know how all of y'all are feeling about this. A lot of folks who live around Hanford are very conservative. Did you vote for this? Did you vote to risk nuclear waste bleeding into your community? Did you vote for your neighbors to get fired from their jobs? Is this making America great again? Is this what we signed up for? Is this really, really cutting government waste, or is something else going on here? I'm going to say this one more time. There is nothing about destabilizing the power grid, making it more likely that we're going to experience outages, that we are going to see our dams and our lines not properly maintained, more at risk of failure. There is nothing about seeing the cost of our utilities go way up, the cost of any good and service that requires electricity to produce it and bring it to you. Those are all going to go up. Nothing about increasing those costs and those risks to us is making America great again. Nothing about that is making us more secure as a nation. Nothing about that is going to lower your cost of living, is going to lower your taxes, is going to make you more secure and prosperous. Nothing about it. None of this is making the government more efficient. None of it is making us safer. None of it is making America great again.